what I wanted to start with, Doug, if I could, is that most of the people in this room are coming from more of a middle management perspective. You were both fortunate and unfortunate enough to have to be the CEO that was leading the company out of its painful situation and did it quite successfully. And it's always, we hear that when you're the CEO, it's a lot easier to do that. You simply call out the directions and people are following you.
How's that working for you at NOD?
It's great.
Not so easy.
I don't know. What do you all think? The NOD team, how's it working? But that's true. We realize how less and less we have power as we go farther in our careers. But from a middle management perspective, where most of the people I think in the audience are coming from, you have similar dilemmas, but I thought you might tap into previous experience before you became a CEO.
I spent most of my career sitting at tables where you guys are. I mean, you don't get anointed. I was 50 around 50 when I became a CEO, but I spent 25 years starting at an entry-level position in Minnesota, working for General Mills, writing packaging copy for Betty Crocker potato buds and specialty potatoes. So I started one step up from the mailroom and worked my way through it. I also came from a relatively small town north of Chicago, 10,000 people, with Midwestern roots, Midwestern values. My grandfather had worked for FDR during the New Deal and had helped craft the GI Bill and helped start the Savings and Loan Association. And we were called to serve our country and serve our fellow human beings. So that was the work ethic and the philosophy I took into my corporate life. And I must say, as things got tougher, the more I relied on the life lessons I had with my family than I did the corporate experiences I had, To this day, if I have a difficult dilemma, I'll think about what my grandfather would do. And then my wife's grandfather also was an extraordinary role model for me. So when I'm in a sticky wicket, I say, well, what would RT do? Or what would my papa do? And it's real clear. I don't have to go read a management book on this. And you don't have to go read a management book on this, What Tanya talked about is the right thing, right? Isn't that what you said? Do I trust the company or do I trust my enterprise is going to do the right thing? And so I found it was almost a blinding glimpse of the obvious. So the more challenging things became, the more I started to rely on trusting my homegrown instincts and standing and being a student of it too, and then standing up and being counted. And I think we can all do that in a way that works for us. But I would challenge all of us. I think too many of us, myself included, for too long, sort of are leading and making decisions by the seat of our pants. Well, I worked for this person, that sort of worked, or I worked for that person, and that. I'm never going to be like that. But I'd say we just have to be more intentional in what we do. We have to figure out who do I want to be? How do I want to act? How do I want to stand up and be counted? Because things will only get tougher, and you have to be incredibly well anchored in order to deal with those challenges. So my challenge to you would be, become more intentional. Think about what matters most to you, and start to lean into that more. And it's not about being a CEO, it's about doing the right thing. And as soon as you start thinking it's about being a CEO, or you're on the wrong track and you probably won't be a CEO very long. That's my point of view. You need to be well anchored in who you are, what you believe in, at every level. And look, I've been fired from jobs. I've been passed over for promotions. I've been my first performance review at General Mills, my boss's boss, you all have performance reviews, and your boss signs it, and then your boss's boss has to write a comment or something. My boss's boss in my first performance review, this was the only sentence on it. It said, "You should be looking for another job." You know.
Did he fire you? Was that?
No,
he
didn't fire me. I survived that one. But it was a wake-up call.
It was a wake-up.
But the notion of stand up and be counted, and you don't have to be a CEO to do that. You need to be a well-anchored person in what you believe to be right.
Doug, building on that, you have created an extraordinary leadership institute, Conant Leadership.
You graduated from there,
I graduated.
which was amazing.
I tell people it's one of the few places I did graduate from. But you run something called the Conant Leadership Boot Camp. I would commend it to every single person in this room. As I look around, you're all change agents. You're all trying to find your leadership model and have it go to work for you for making change in your own companies, whatever that kind of change is. But the core of the work within the boot camp is developing your own leadership model and starting with your own core values and what drives you and why you're here and who are the people who influenced you and what are the sort of mantras and what are the tenets of your own. Can you talk a little bit, Doug, about your own leadership model? Because trust is at the very center of that model. And that's what we're here to talk about today, and it's certainly everything you.
Well, this notion of we're all leading lives. I mean, we're all in this together, and this notion of we all have performance reviews and we read all these books that say here's how you ought to do this. That all just washes over me. It never makes sense. I go through periods where I'm fascinated by a leader, and I'm going to be more like this leader. I had an incredible crush on Mother Teresa. She was amazing. She, in the corporate world, the biggest complaint, and probably in a lot of your organizations, we don't have enough resources. We don't have enough money. We can't do it. Mother Teresa had no resources and no money and moved the world. She had moral authority. And you can deliver on that too. So I wanted to be Mother Teresa for a while. I was a big Gandhi fan for a while because what I liked about Gandhi was he failed time and again and kept persevering and found his footing when he was 50 or so. And that goes on and on. But they all developed their own leadership philosophy. Here's how I'm going to show up in a way where I can show up in a highly authentic way that works. And I'm going to be myself, but I'm going to be myself smartly. And so what we do at the Conant Boot Camp is help you figure out what does that look like? And then how can you bring it to life when you go into your company? Those performance reviews are helpful because you need to know what true north is for your company. What would they expect here at the Ford Foundation? What are the key things? How, you need to know that. But then you need to figure out how can I plug into that in a way that works for me. It's an area that's been given short shrift in a lot of leadership development work, and it's mission critical. So that's what we do, and you're all welcome to explore it. I would tell you, when you don't have that, it gets hard. You get into tough situations where, I declared myself on an issue. The first time I had my Global 350 meeting, first time CEO, and I did 10 commitments and I hand signed the letters to all 350 at a meeting in Philadelphia, right on the Delaware River, and. The first one said we're going to honor and respect every individual within our company. And then we had a group meeting, and in the morning of the first meeting with these people, I had 2 guest speakers that disrespected the group. And I was already, we had the things taped under the chairs, hand signed, that I was going to have this big reveal at the end, and here are my 10 commitments to you. And we'd already screwed up the first one in my first meeting. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do here? This is a disaster. And fortunately for me, my 10th commitment was, I will screw up, but I will remedy the situation swiftly and thoughtfully and move on, and I won't make the same mistake twice. So at lunchtime, I went up to the podium. I said, "This is a little out of sequence, but stuck under your chair is this hand-signed commitment to you." And in the first statement, I've committed to honoring everyone in this organization, and I feel as if in my first meeting with you, I've let you down. And then I went into my commitments to them, and I acknowledged that I was smart enough to put number 10 be, I will make mistakes. But I think it's important if you declare yourself and you commit to a set of values, and then you live those values and you openly acknowledge when you miss things, you create transparency, you gain power, and you gain influence, and you gain trust. So those things matter, and you can only do that if you can draw upon a reservoir within you that keeps you fortified in the face of all those tough things, you know. So that's what we do. I get carried away. I'm sorry.
We promise practical wisdom, so I wanted to ask you two questions that sort of get down to the nitty-gritty and give people some tools. There's certainly practices I engage in, having really been transformed, I would say, by my experience with Conant Leadership and the boot camp. One of the things you do, and you refer to it here, is early on in your tenure, in a person's tenure coming to work for you, you have a meeting in which you reveal yourself. And you speak very eloquently about it. Tell the group a little, if you would, about how you do that.
I think it's important. I go back to people are not mind readers. It's good and the bad of that, but as leaders we assume, or as peers or subordinates even, we assume people understand where we're coming from. And they quite frankly, they just don't, even with good intentions. So the first hour, the first day I work with someone, I tell them more than they ever wanted to know about me. We take an hour and we talk, and it's written down, and I cover the things that are important to me in my life, the 5 things, which are family, community, my work, my faith, and my own personal well-being, and I talk about how I try and live those things. It goes through a whole bunch of other stuff. At the end, it's my favorite quotes, because I love to read. And the quotes probably say more about me than the actual everything else I say.
I say a lot.
But, and you've seen it. And I invite them to come back in an hour and get an hour and share with me whatever they want to talk about, because it's a two-way street. But I find it so weird that I have to model it first, because they wouldn't know what to begin with. So I do that first hour, first day I work with someone, and have done it for years. And I don't know about you, but when I start a new job, I'm working for someone, and I feel like we're doing a dance for like 3 months. What does he really want? What is she looking for? How does she? We just talk about all that the first hour of the first day and get it out of the way. And then let's do business. And at the end, I say, this is me. If I do what I say I'm going to do, I guess you can trust me. If I don't, you can't, but you'll know, and you can move on. You can figure out how to deal with me. But I found once I declare myself with people, I really am committed to it. You sort of come out of the closet on my commitments, and I have to own them. So this notion of declaring yourself in whatever way works for you is a powerful notion. It's a powerful notion for us introverts as well. Anybody I've been through 5 rounds of Myers-Briggs, and you would never know it, but I'm an introvert. And us introverts have trouble expressing these things, which is why I suggest a structured approach for doing it. It's highlighted on our website at Conant Leadership. It's also highlighted in our book on touch points.
I would strongly commend to you to go online and look at it, because in it Doug really traces out all of the steps. It's a great idea. You're all probably thinking, wow, you're saving 3 to 6 months of feeling around in the dark. But then how do you do it? And what you see on the website is the A, B, C, D of it. I wanted to ask you, Doug, about the entourage of excellence as part of what helps.
There's a beautiful video. I'm teaching up in Boston right now, or I started this morning there. I'll end up tonight there. And we ran a video yesterday. We ran the Maya Angelou video.
Oh,
Do you
yes.
remember that?
Oh, yes, sir.
I don't know if and Maya Angelou has this wonderful video that she talks about rainbows in her clouds. And she said, I've had stormy weather, a lot of clouds, but I've had a lot of rainbows in my clouds. And she said, every time I go to work, every time I go up on stage, every time I go to direct a movie, I think back to all the rainbows that have been in my clouds, all the people that have been there for me in these special moments. And I say to them, come on now, we're going up on stage. You're coming with me. You know, this notion that leadership is a lonely journey, it's only lonely if you let it be. It doesn't have to be. You can bring all those. I bring RT and my papa with me everywhere I go. And you can bring those people with you too. And the entourage has been enormously helpful to me, because if I get in, and the entourage is literally probably 50 people now that have had a profound influence on me. And if I'm in a sticky wicket on a particular area, I'll think back to, well, what would Doreen say about that? Or what would Nancy say about that? Because this is her area of expertise. And pretty quickly, I have an answer. And so think about the people who've had a profound influence on you in your life, and they're right there with you. Just channel them as you engage in these issues. It's far from a lonely journey. It's far from a lonely journey. It's only lonely if you let it be.
Well, and it's even better when your entourage is still alive and sitting next to you up on a stage. I was going to ask whether people in the audience have questions for Doug. I'm sure you have been intrigued by some of what you've heard here today. Yes.
How do you manage as a...
Hold on one sec. Do we have a mic?
Oh, can you turn mine on? Okay, I think mine is on.
Oh, yours on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my question is, here's the situation. I see a lot, and I asked at the Diversity Inc. Event, I asked this question. I'm going to ask in a moment, and a lot of people said, yeah, we too. So it's about your top management is committed, and you can see that they are committed, right? But there is layers of management in between where people...
Frozen middle.
Exactly.
There's the frozen middle.
And the frozen middle, sometimes there are things happening at the bottom, but the frozen middle protects, quote unquote, the top management. So there is no real, there's no real feedback to management. So how do you prevent that? And I mean, you were CEO, so you know exactly.
Well, and I was in the middle too. I was more in the middle than I was a CEO. So I know exactly what you're talking about. This is one of those Stephen Covey things. You got to behave your way through it, and you delayer. There are a whole host of ways you can influence the middle, but it takes a long time, and you have to be a dog on a bone with it. You declare your direction. Here's what we expect. Here's how we expect you to do it, and we're going to start making tough changes to our top 350 in the next 3 years. There's a logical consequence. We want you to be with the program, but if you can't be with the program, we have to move on. My 350 were overseeing another 19,650 people who needed to be attended to. Right. And we weren't getting the job done. And interestingly, when we let those people go, employee engagement, I didn't know what was going to happen. It went straight up because everybody knew those people were getting in the way. And they were just waiting to see someone hold them accountable. But you have to be pretty clear. Here's what we expect. I think you have to give people time to be part of the solution. But then you have to say, we cannot fiddle while Rome is burning here. We've got to deal with this in the next 3 years. And you have to be tough-minded on standards and tender-hearted with people. Easy to say, hard to do.
I know there'll be more questions, and I think we'll have time for those later, Doug. I think we're actually moving into a panel now, so thank you.